I was ready to marry the love of my life until she asked for a threesome with the guy she'd been secretly seeing. Now, her family blames me for calling off the wedding. I'm struggling with everything that's happened, and I just need to vent. I'm a 24-year-old guy who recently proposed to my now ex-fiancée, who is 23. We met through mutual friends at work, got to know each other, and began dating officially on New Year's Eve 2 years ago. Early on in our relationship, she mentioned a guy named Marvin, who apparently had always been interested in her. During the first few months, he kept messaging her and trying to get her to leave me for him. We used to laugh at how pathetic it was, and she made it clear she wasn't interested in him. For the record, I'm not some supermodel. I'm a 5'4" Asian guy who's more on the nerdy side. Fast forward 2 years into our relationship, and I decided it was time to propose. I asked her to marry me on New Year's Eve in front of her entire family, and she said yes. She doesn't have a job, but I've saved up enough to comfortably cover the wedding expenses since her parents couldn't afford to help. I started booking everything from venues to catering and decorations. One day, while we were out running errands, the topic of having a threesome came up. Since we're in our 20s, we thought it might be something fun to try. We talked about how we'd find a third person, and she immediately suggested Marvin. That should have been my first clue that something was off, but I let it slide for the moment. I asked why Marvin, and she said it was because she found him sexually attractive. When I reminded her of how she used to say she hated him, she just brushed it off, saying it was just a one-time thing. I said we'd have to set some boundaries and talk through everything in detail before agreeing. Over the next few days, she seemed really excited, constantly bringing up plans, hotels, and how thrilling it was going to be. I kept telling her that we needed to talk it through properly because it wasn't as simple as she made it sound. Eventually, she slowed down a bit, but then she kept pestering me about it until I told her to either chill out or the threesome was off the table. She apologized, saying I was right, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Later that day, while she was napping, I looked through her phone and discovered that she had actually been cheating on me with Marvin for a few months. They had been meeting up while I was at work, and she even sent him some BDSM tests to see if their kinks matched. I was beyond furious. When she woke up, I confronted her, and she started crying, saying she was sorry and claimed she didn't know what she was doing. I packed my things and left to stay at a hotel. That night, her parents called me, accusing me of ruining the engagement and acting immature, saying I was the one who suggested the threesome in the first place and that their daughter wasn't to blame. I didn't respond and started canceling all the wedding arrangements. The next day, she called me, apologizing and begging me to come back, while her whole family kept messaging me to man up and take the blame, insisting I shouldn't end the engagement. Am I really the a-hole for calling everything off? Update 1. Hey everyone, thanks for the feedback and advice, whether supportive or critical. I found both sides helpful. Before I continue, I want to clear up a few things. My ex left her job to go back to college. We originally met at work, but she stopped working once we moved in together. My ex-fiancée told her family that I broke up with her because I was the one who suggested a threesome and got upset when she mentioned Marvin. Her family completely believed her story. Honestly, I needed validation that I wasn't in the wrong because I've been a pushover most of my life, so standing up for myself doesn't come naturally. After reading your comments, I decided to reach out to my future father-in-law, Phil, to explain my side of the story. We agreed to meet at a nearby mall to discuss why I ended the engagement. We've always gotten along well because we have similar interests, so I thought he'd be willing to hear me out. Even though he seemed angry at first, he agreed to listen. I showed him the screenshots of my ex's messages with Marvin. He was shocked and said that my ex had told them a completely different story, claiming I had suggested the threesome and then got angry when she picked Marvin. He also mentioned that Marvin had been visiting my ex while she stayed with them after our breakup. We went back to my apartment, packed up all her things, and I decided to keep the engagement ring. We're on our way to drop everything off at her place now. I'll update you guys soon. Update 2. Hey, I'm back with another update. I had to create a new account since my previous one got shadow banned, so sorry for the delay. After we packed my ex's stuff, my father-in-law and I drove over to his house. The drive was incredibly awkward. When we got there, we walked in to find my mother-in-law, my ex, and Marvin all sitting in the living room. My ex looked like she'd been crying for quite a while. Marvin was comforting her. And my mother-in-law was sitting by her side with tissues. When my mother-in-law saw me, she asked father-in-law why I was there. He told her that we needed to have a conversation to clear up the situation. We all sat down, and just as Marvin was about to leave, father-in-law asked him to stay, saying he was a part of this too. Marvin looked uncomfortable. His leg was shaking, and he avoided eye contact with everyone. Father-in-law then announced that I was willing to reconsider the engagement, which made my mother-in-law and ex happy. But he added a condition. Marvin needed to show his WhatsApp messages with my ex to him. I was surprised, but quickly understood why father-in-law made the request. There was a chance Marvin hadn't deleted their conversation even if my ex had. Marvin tried to object, but father-in-law firmly insisted, saying it was the least he could do for his daughter. My ex and Marvin exchanged worried glances, and my mother-in-law stayed silent. In the end, Marvin stood up and left without a word. That was all father-in-law needed to see. He turned to my ex, who started crying and told her to stop. Father-in-law said he'd seen the evidence of her cheating, and he was ashamed of her dishonesty. When I showed my mother-in-law the screenshots, both of them were furious with my ex, asking how she could lie and betray them like that. After that, father-in-law took her things out to the driveway and told her she needed to find somewhere else to stay because she wasn't welcome there anymore. He apologized to me and said he'd like to keep in touch to make sure I'm okay. When I got home, I felt completely drained, probably because the adrenaline had worn off. My ex tried calling me once, but I ignored it and blocked her number. I also spoke to security at my building and to make sure she's not allowed in. I posted about what happened on my social media accounts with the screenshots so no one could twist the story. I'll be getting most of my money back after canceling the wedding arrangements, and I'm planning to move to a different state. I also got tested for STDs, and thankfully I'm clean. I'll be selling the ring to recover some of the expenses. I don't think I'll be posting more updates, but I appreciate everyone's input, good and bad. I'm hoping things will start looking up from here.
Story 2. I never wanted kids, but my husband convinced me he'd be the perfect stay-at-home dad. Now our baby's here, and he's already breaking his promise, turning our lives upside down. I'm a 36-year-old neurologist who is deeply passionate about my job and helping my patients. My journey to becoming a doctor wasn't easy, as I faced many setbacks, including being rejected from colleges after high school. I had to start with basic classes at a community college and worked my way up to medical school at the age of 26. That was a huge accomplishment for me. I met my husband, now 37, during my 3rd year of medical school, and we've been married for 4 years. He works in marketing, but I earn 3 times more than he does. Early in our relationship, I was clear that I wasn't sure about having biological children, preferring adoption from foster care. My husband seemed to agree, but after his best friend had a baby boy last year, he started pushing for us to have children. At first, I was against the idea because I was focused on my career and wanted to wait a few more years before considering having kids. Last August, I found out I was unexpectedly pregnant because the condom broke during sex. At first, I thought about having an abortion, but after several deep conversations with my husband, we decided to keep the baby. He agreed to quit his job and stay home to take care of our daughter until she was old enough to go to preschool. It made sense financially since I earn much more than he does. I'm still in the early stages of my career as an attending physician, having gone through 4 years of medical school and another 4 years of residency. Meanwhile, my husband has been well established in his career for 15 years. I made it very clear that I had no interest in staying home to be a housewife. My career means everything to me, and I would go crazy if I stayed home all day. I also don't feel comfortable putting my daughter in daycare until she can speak and express herself clearly. Due to my past experience as a victim of molestation, I don't trust leaving her in the care of strangers when she can't communicate if something goes wrong. Our daughter is now 9 weeks old, and I'm getting ready to go back to my job soon. Over the weekend, I left her with my husband while I attended a medical conference. When I returned, I noticed that he was acting strangely. Today, when our daughter was napping, I asked him what was bothering him. He broke down and admitted that he didn't think he could handle being a stay-at-home dad. He said he felt trapped, isolated, and overwhelmed during the weekend. He asked me to extend my maternity leave and said he was thinking about returning to his job. This upset me, and I asked what we were supposed to do with our daughter if he backed out of our agreement. He suggested that I work from home or that we put her in daycare. At that point, I lost my temper and yelled that if I'd known he was going to break his promise, I would never have had our child. I realized I overreacted, and I would never give up my daughter for anything because I love her so much. However, I'm really hurt. and don't know how to move forward with my husband now. Relevant comments. OP. Some people have asked about my birth control methods, so I'll explain. I started using hormonal birth control when I was 17, but I experienced almost every side effect listed, which was unbearable. I tried different types, but eventually gave up on them. I then opted for a copper IUD, but the severe cramping forced me to get it removed. For the last several years, I've been using condoms exclusively, which usually worked fine. As an extra precaution, I never let my husband ejaculate into the condom while inside me. Still, occasionally he loses control and doesn't pull out in time, which is what happened the night we conceived our daughter. It didn't seem like a big deal at the time, but now I'm reconsidering some things. Commenter 1, how does a neurologist work from home? NTA, he's okay with you feeling trapped and overwhelmed while he's not willing to handle it himself? OP, if I did transition to a work from home role, it would mean giving up on directly treating patients as a neurologist. I'd likely end up doing consulting work for a health insurance company, which honestly sounds very unfulfilling. Commenter 2, why are you going back to work so soon after 9 weeks? Don't you get a full year of paid maternity leave? OP, not in the US. It's a struggle to even get any paid maternity leave here, so it's not an option. Commenter 3, NTA, but consider the warning signs here. OP, he pushed for a child, then when you unexpectedly got pregnant, he agreed to be the stay-at-home parent. Now, he's going back on that promise. It's concerning that he feels overwhelmed after a short time, but doesn't expect the same from you. Update. Hello everyone, it's been a few months since my last post, and I was completely surprised by how much attention it received. I was overwhelmed by the thousands of comments and hundreds of direct messages. I even saw my post shared on Twitter. To everyone who reached out with kind and supportive messages, thank you. It means more than you know. For those who sent critical messages and questioned my ability as a mother, you're part of the reason why 40% of female doctors go part-time or leave the profession within 6 years of completing their residencies. Women can desire both a career and a family, just like men have done for generations. And that doesn't make us bad people. To those who asked for medical advice, I'm not comfortable providing that over Reddit, but I sincerely hope you get the help you need. As for those who questioned why I wasn't on birth control, I addressed that in another comment. Hormonal birth control doesn't work for everyone. Even certified gynecologists will confirm this. After years of trying different methods, I settled on condoms and the pull-out method. Was it a perfect decision? No. But I wouldn't change anything because I love my daughter deeply. Now for the actual update. A few days after my last post, I realized how wrong it was for me to use our daughter as leverage during our argument. No matter how frustrated I was, I should never have said that. If it ever came down to it, I'd quit my job and be a single mom for her because I love her more than anything, and I'd choose her every single time. I felt terrible for reacting that way, and for not being more patient and understanding with my husband. To give you some background, my mom stayed with us for the first 8 weeks after our daughter was born to help out. During that time, my husband was very involved. He and my mom pretty much split the baby duties 50-50 while I recovered. After that, the three of us shared the responsibilities. When my mom left and my husband had to manage things alone for a weekend, I should have realized how big of a shock that transition must have been for him. His feelings of being overwhelmed and trapped are the same reasons I never wanted to be a stay-at-home parent. Even though we had an agreement, I should have given him more space to express his concerns without losing my temper. After our argument, I took our daughter and stayed at my sister's place for a few days to give my husband some space. He visited her every day during that time, but we agreed not to have any serious conversations just yet. When I returned home, I apologized for how I handled things. To my surprise, he also apologized. He admitted that he hadn't planned on backing out of his promise. He was just feeling so overwhelmed that he didn't think he was capable of taking care of our daughter the right way. He apologized for giving up too quickly and suggesting that I work from home, and he assured me that I should never leave my practice. In the end, he said he wanted to try being a stay-at-home dad again. We had a long discussion about how to make this work. He confessed that taking care of our daughter wasn't the main issue. It was the cooking and cleaning that overwhelmed him. So we decided to hire a maid and signed up for a meal kit delivery service to help ease the workload. He also joined a new parent support group to combat the feelings of isolation. My sister-in-law agreed to babysit 3 times a week so he could have some time to himself or go to the gym. I made it clear to my husband that if he ever felt like he couldn't handle being a stay-at-home dad anymore, he should tell me right away. I'd rather deal with the disappointment than see him burned out and unhappy. To strengthen our marriage, we've started going on weekly date nights. Since I'm not comfortable leaving our daughter with anyone outside of the family yet, these dates usually involve taking long walks with her in the stroller or enjoying Netflix and takeout at home, but it's working for us, addressing the issue of poking holes in the condom. I don't believe my husband tampered with the condom, and I didn't even bring it up. Accusing him of something like that would be damaging to our relationship, especially when things are already fragile. He has agreed to get a vasectomy later this year, and we're avoiding penetrative intercourse until then. This whole experience made me realize I needed to return to therapy. I've been seeing my therapist for about 6 weeks now. Dealing with my own trauma and the anxiety that followed my daughter's birth stirred up some dark thoughts. And I want to work through these issues so that I can be the best mother and partner possible. Many people advised me to leave my husband, and I understand why they might feel that way. But I'm confident in my decision to stay. My husband had a moment of weakness, but he's not generally unreliable or unsupportive. He stood by me through my most challenging years of med school and residency. My post may have highlighted the lowest point in our relationship, but it doesn't erase the 8 wonderful years we've shared together. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Oh wow, you're really acting like a Stepford wife here. OP's response. During the first year of our relationship, I was preparing for the USMLE Step 2 exam, which is an incredibly intense 9-hour test that covers all your clinical knowledge and plays a huge role in determining your residency match. I was under a lot of pressure at the time. One night, we had dinner reservations for 8 p.m., but I was so drained that I accidentally fell asleep at 6 p.m., totally missing our plans. When he came to check on me around 9 p.m., I broke down in tears as soon as I opened the door, feeling overwhelmed and doubting my ability to finish med school. He stayed by my side all night, comforting me, and never left me to struggle alone. For weeks, he took care of everything. He made sure I had meals twice a day, handled my laundry, ran errands, looked after my cat, and gave me back massages because of the hours I spent bent over textbooks. His support was unwavering during that tough time, and he did everything possible to keep me focused on my goal. This is the person my husband truly is, and that's why I'm committed to helping him now as he adjusts to being a stay-at-home dad. You can call me a Stepford wife if you like, but it's not worth jeopardizing my family over one bad argument. OP on having more kids and family planning. Nope, we're done. My husband is getting a vasectomy. I tried using a copper IUD before, but it caused me unbearable periods. I'm honestly fed up with family planning falling entirely on women. I don't want to deal with hormonal birth control and its side effects for another decade when my husband has agreed to a quick, simple procedure. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed our stories and would like to hear more, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing you captivating tales and new content every week. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We appreciate every one of you for being a part of our storytelling journey.